Shabbat Shalom, welcome. It's good to see you, all of our friends who've joined us in person and online for our services this evening. And each one of you, I'm just looking out and seeing all these people that I love and appreciate in all kinds of different ways. And no single one of us is redundant. Every one of us brings something special and unique. And so too, we're taught by the words of Psalm 133, Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good and sweet and beautiful it is for brothers and sisters to sit gam yachad. That extra gam isn't needed, and it tells us that when we sit together in companionship, that something else special joins us, a spirit of the eternal, a spirit of the divine, and so we appreciate and enjoy this moment of togetherness on Shabbat. Page 10, Hine ma tov.
Hine ma tov
u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
How good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day.
how good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
how good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day.
how good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. And it is delightful to be able to welcome Diane and Roger Siegel to light our Shabbat candles. We turn to page 2 for the blessing over kindling our Shabbat lights as we rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav mitzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. We continue with the Kiddush, page 5 in our prayer books. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziyat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. And Diane Roger, we wish you strength, and we wish that your mother Phyllis's memory always is a source of blessing and goodness and wholeness to you. Shkoach, may you have strength. You may be seated. We continue into our Kabbalah Shabbat service for receiving the Sabbath as we sing a new song, Shiru Ladonai, page 13.
Shiru Ladonai, Kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai, shir chadash. Shiru Ladonai, Kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai, shir chadash. I will sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai, Kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai, shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
We would continue with Lachadodi, page 20.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Nene Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Nene Shabbat, Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Yishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'litzchila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Bnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Bnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, Lechu v'necha, Ki b'kol habracha, merosh mikadem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Bnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Bnei Shabbat, Nekabela.
Verse 5.
Hitoreri, Kiva orech umi ori, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayich tefila. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Bnei Shabbat, Nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Bnei Shabbat, Nekabela.
Please rise.
Bohi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'soch olam.
continue. You may be seated with the Chatzi Kaddish, page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
בעלמא דברה חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל.
בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב.
ואמרו אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולא מעלמיה. יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא. Amen. Rise for the call to worship the Baruch Hu, page 28.
On page 30. Umavdil ben yomu mevi lahila, umavdil ben yomu mevi lahila, Adonai tziva'ot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu, le'olam ba'en, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'arim aravim.
Blessed is the one who distinguishes day from night, and blessed is the one who distinguishes us with special purpose and God's love, that God gives us God's Torah, that God gives us a way of life that's uplifting and fulfilling and meaningful, that God grants us blessings that we can carry on, living on in the blessings of our ancestors and passing those on to our children, and that we should know in living those blessings God's love, God's care for us. As we say, blessed is the one who loves God's people, Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We continue at the top of page 39 together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליי, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליי, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליי, נורא תהילות, אוסף אליי, יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, yay da 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 da, yay da 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 da, yay da da, yay da da da, yay da da da. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש.
This next prayer for security, the hope of protection, especially for all those that are vulnerable around our world and for ourselves. We continue together, the middle of page 43. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
We continue with our prayer for Shabbat, Vishamru, the top of page 44.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית העולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית העולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית העולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית העולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית העולם.
In a moment, we'll begin the Amidah on page 46 and continue together through the third blessing of the Amidah on page 52. After that, each of us are free to complete the Amidah however we choose. You can use the words in your book that go through page 63, or whatever words speak to you from your own heart. Please, as well, feel free to have a seat and continue with some quiet meditation whenever you are ready. But for now, we rise as we turn to page 46 for Adonai Sefatai Tivtach.
Adonai Sefatai Tivtach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai,
Magin Abraham Bezrat Sarah. Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye Hako Ata Rab Lehoshia.
Vashiv haruach umorid hagashem.
Mechakel Chaim Vechesed, Mechaye Hako
Berachamim rabim. Somech noflim berofech cholim.
Umatir Asurim, Umkayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua.
V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai,
Mechayeh hakol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yechalu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Each week we offer our prayers for healing for all of those individuals who are within our own circles of concern. And at the same time this week, I think that it deserves mention that as war is occurring right now in Ukraine, Ukraine was a very important center of Judaism, where many of our families have origins, and there are many Jews that are still residing there. In fact, I had the opportunity to visit there more than a decade ago and meet with some of the Jewish communities of Ukraine. And so I'm thinking of all of them, especially this Shabbat, as we're preparing to recite the Misha Berach blessing for all those in need of healing. We as a congregation, we think of Penny Clemens, Tracy Godfrey, Ronna Heller, Sally Keaton, Roberto Kreitzer, Nathan Malter, Louis Neustadt, Tony Ricolta, George Ricolta, Nancy Siegel, Heather Silverman, and Sherry Smith. If there are others members of our congregation are thinking of for the Misha Berach prayer, please feel free to add their name at this time. Yes, Jason.
David Gold.
For David Gold.
Families of some of our pantry friends from today.
For those neighbors that are in need of healing.
Lori and Pat.
For Lori and Pat.
Sasha Jasmine
for Chasha and Ed. For all those mentioned, the many more that go unmentioned, we pray for Refuah Shlema, full and complete healing, page 253. Misheberach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength to bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. This week's Torah portion begins with the words, Vayakhel Moshe, and Moses gathered together. At the core of these instructions to gather together is the idea of congregation and community, Kehillah, as we say in Hebrew. It is an acknowledgement that we are social creatures, and our lives are uplifted and given meaning in the context of community. No time has tested the strength of our communities like the recent past. So many obstacles have impeded our gathering. To begin with, the pandemic, but the importance of community had begun to diminish prior to the pandemic. Reasons for this have included attacks on our sense of security in our sacred space, competing demands on our time and attention, and a persistent emphasis on individualism over community in Western culture. As a result, the value and needs of our congregations are less and less understood today, even by those of us who support them. As we become increasingly isolated, opportunities for connection are diminished. Rabbi and historian Gershon Cohen once wrote that the synagogue was, in fact, the portable state of the Jewish people after the destruction of the temple and our exile. The synagogue kept Torah alive, kept Hebrew alive, kept Shabbat alive. For centuries, our synagogues have been the places where we learn, study, listen, and share ideas together. In synagogues, we express our values. We take care of each other when we're sick or grieving, and we celebrate together on our holidays and occasions of joy. Where else can we find this array of expression and purposeful living in our world? We need our community, a place where we can feel rooted, a place where we can be ourselves, a place that reflects our values and gives order to a world that seems so chaotic. And this brings us beyond the beginning of our parasha Vayakhel to something in the portion that strikes me every time I come to read it. At the end of the Torah reading, we learned that the source of the sanctity of the tabernacle was the ark, and the source of the uniqueness of the ark was that the covenant, the tablets of the law, were encased there. The Talmud challenges our religious imagination because it insists that that object, that ark, contains something more than the intact tablets that Moses brought down from Sinai. A 3rd century Babylonian sage, Rabbi Yosef, taught that, in fact, both sets of tablets were in there. What did he mean by that? Well, there were the first set of tablets that were brought down from Sinai, which were smashed in anger by Moses. When Moses saw the Israelites worshiping the golden calf, he threw them to the ground. So it happened to those sacred fragments, the broken tablets. Although they were shattered and illegible, they still bore the imprint of the divine. God, the text says, wrote them with God's finger. And therefore, Rabbi Yosef teaches that they still contained holiness. Therefore, Moses treated them with the same reverence as the undamaged set. And here there's a lesson, that even things which are broken, whether they be our thwarted hopes, our shattered dreams, or our broken selves, we become that brokenness in our communities. And we can also say yes. We can also affirm the sacredness of those shattered pieces. We can affirm that in our community there is a place for that brokenness, for the infirm, for the disabled, for the aged or the anguished. We can continue to welcome people who stumble or the stranger who's lost, because we know what it feels like to be strangers. All of us have some pieces of us that have been broken at times. But our spirits can be restored, healed, and lifted here in the context of community. Here we can come together as one and support each other. Here we can affirm the presence of the divine and that which is holy in our lives, without any hubris, without any emphasis on our perfection or our greatness, but rather through asserting our brokenness, our vulnerability. That is how we create a community which cares. May this be God's will. Ken yehi ratzon. And with that thought of healing and with that thought of welcoming people, of welcoming everyone to find their place in this community, we think towards that day when all of us will be able to draw together and to celebrate the arrival of a new day, a new hope, where we can gather in peace together. These are the hopes and dreams expressed by the Aleinu, which begins the Siyum, the concluding section of our service. We rise, page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gdula le'otzeh b'reshit, shelo asanu giboyei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo safrakenu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, shehu notei shamayim beyoser haaretz, u'moshe mikaro b'shamayim ima'al, u'shchinatu zo, ve'gam hem eromim, hu Eloheinu Enon, and Malkeinu efezu kakatu b'torato, v'yatata hayom be'hashevota el levavecha, hi Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim ima'al, ve'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od.
We join together at the top of page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. You may be seated. Page 290. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something of God in each hour of the 24, and each moment then. In the faces of men and women I see God, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and every one is signed by God's name, and I leave them where they are. For I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. Our thoughts turn to all of those blessed individuals, members of our family, former members of our congregation, and our friends who sadly are no longer with us in life. We think of them now. They are our eternal blessing. We're in a period of Shloshim for Norma Stoller, the mother of our member Lisa Jackson, as well as Linda Kearns, a dear friend of our members, the Ricolta family. We further recognize the yard sites, the following individuals that occur this calendar week: Albert Asher, Lillian Bricker, Lucy Cohen, Ethel Dworkin, Dorothy Gutmann, William Horowitz, Paul Kors, Saul Lunsky, James S. McIntyre, Christopher Eric McVitie, Richard A. Miller, Helen Ritter, Phyllis Siegel, and Dan Steffen. There are others, members of our congregation, are thinking of for the Mourner's Cottage that I've not yet mentioned. Please feel free to add their names at this time. For Barbara Gilman. Sorry?
Madeline Peleus.
For Madeline Peleus. And for all those mentioned and those that go unmentioned, we rise in support and solidarity of all those in mourning, all those observing yard sites, as we recite together the words of the Mourner's Cottage on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudashah barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, B'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, Amen. You may be seated as we welcome our officer, Jason Gold, to share tonight's announcements. And his entourage. Here they come.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay through this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Please, gentlemen, join us for our first Brotherhood Poker Night on Wednesday, March 2nd, from 7 to 9 p.m. We will be having we'll be having gentlemanly friendly games of Texas Hold'em with no buy-in. It won't cost you money, no buy-in. Snacks and drinks will be available. Donations are welcome to cover the costs. Please RSVP to our Executive Director, Daniel. On Saturday, March 5th at 10:30 a.m., join the Rakolta family as Gregory Rakolta is called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. TKA Trivia Night is back. Join us on Saturday, March 5th at 6 p.m. for a fun night of competing against your fellow TKA adults and kids on Zoom. RSVP to the office. Sunday, March 13th at 10:30 a.m. is the TKA Annual Purim Carnival. We will have a family-friendly Megillah reading at 10 a.m. before the carnival itself, and then at 10:30, all the games, inflatables, snacks, and fun. Check your weekly email for all the details. And finally, TKA presents Purim 2022. Join us on Wednesday, March 16th at 6:45 p.m. for drinks, nosh, and the Ghostbusters Purim Spiel, which I hear is fabulous. It will begin at 7 p.m. Please RSVP to the office. Thank you, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to have you stick. Can you guys help with hamotzi? We need to go and uncover the bread over here. And do you know the blessing? Here we go. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Girls, take a piece of challah. Enjoy. Take a piece of challah. Can you get one off? It's good stuff. It's Dakota. All right. Our closing song tonight is off of the top 40 greatest hits of Israel. Yeah, Uzi Gutmann's rendition of Adon Olam.
Page 321. Adon Olam, Hashem Alach, B'terem Kol. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'et Natzav Echafso Kol Zay Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kivlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'et Natzav Echafso Kol Zay Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kivlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove B'tifara Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove B'tifara.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Could have gone faster.